everyone, and welcome to Insurance Agents Talk Shop podcast. My name is Doug Coombs. I'm Chief Marketing Officer at SIAA, and I'll be your host. And I want to really thank you for joining us for today's episode. Life insurance is not a taboo subject. Our guest today to prove that point is Jack Calabrese, Senior Vice President of Life and Benefits at SIAA. Jack, thanks for joining me today.
Oh, I'm glad to be here.
Yes, well, we have a number of questions that I think people would love to hear or get some answers to. So right away, I just want to start off by mentioning that most of our listeners are property and casualty or P&C agents. And I'm wondering, why should they care about life insurance?
Well, I think there's a number of reasons why they should care about life insurance, and it's probably something that they've heard over and over throughout their career. It's kind of an interesting thing that primarily, P&C produces. They're so focused on, servicing their clients and taking care of their clients on the property and casualty side, that it's tough for them sometimes to pivot outside of that to think about life insurance. But there's certainly a couple of reasons. Number one is obviously income. You can make a lot of money selling life insurance. And one of the key advantages that the P&C producer has over a life and financial professional is you have a built-in market. You have a natural way and a natural lead-in to have those types of conversations with your existing or new customers to talk about life insurance. If you think about the type of premiums that life insurance commands, the average life premium is somewhere around $1,000, and now you actually have companies that are paying first year commissions based upon that premium of 80, 90, even higher than that percentage of that first year premium. You can do really, really well. So from an income generating standpoint, you can do really well with life insurance. And that is certainly something that you should take into consideration as it pertains to kind of the swings that can occur on the property and casualty side. You have some areas that are restricted from an underwriting standpoint with property and casualty. The rates change. It can be really tough sometimes. Life insurance is certainly something that you can rely upon to supplement and complement income when the P&C market is a little bit more difficult. So that's number one, income, kind of the obvious one. The other area is retention. And again, this is something that a lot of P&C producers have probably heard over and over again, but there are plenty of studies out there that talk about how selling an additional line or two additional lines of coverage will keep a client around a lot longer. And it's particularly true when it comes to life insurance. By its very nature, life insurance is sticky. If you have somebody that purchases a life insurance product, their health and their age pretty much gets locked into that policy, which makes it kind of difficult to kind of replace or to switch your life insurance. So if you think about that, your customers that have not only the auto, homeowner, maybe even an umbrella, but a life insurance policy, you're taking care of their whole need. Now you're not somebody that's just pushing product, but you're taking a more holistic approach in terms of covering an individual or their family or their business for that matter. So they're less likely to leave if you're taking care of everything. Number two, the life insurance sale is more of a consultative sale. So it really kind of demonstrates the professionalism of that property and casualty producer and kind of moves them away from somebody that's just, quoting and trying to save them 15% in 15 minutes or less. And the other thing is for those people that do shop their auto and homeowners, if you have the life insurance, and even if you have a client that leaves on the property and casualty side, because you still have their life insurance, it gives you license to be able to check in with those people from time to time and to be able to requote the auto and the homeowners. So there's a number of different ways from a retention standpoint. Lastly, and probably most importantly, it's really the right thing to do. If you look at the statistics out there right now, there are many, many people that don't have any life insurance at all. And if you think about the whole impact of the coronavirus and, a lot of the people that are unemployed, think about that for a second. And I don't know what the exact figure is anymore, but is it 20, 30, 40 million people lost their jobs in this country. And for a percentage of those people, they lost the only life insurance coverage that they had through their employer sponsored group coverage. So, you have an opportunity to speak to your clients about that, to make sure that they have the coverage maybe when they need it most. And even for those people that end up with a new employer, there's no guarantee that the new company that they go to is going to have an employer-sponsored group life plan. Or it may be a lesson learned that having your own individual life insurance policy is going to allow you the control that if you want to switch companies, that you can, and you don't have to worry about the life insurance component of it. So there are a lot of different reasons why it's important for a P&C producer.
Thanks, Jack. And, I'm listening to you, and I'm remembering back a few months when the whole COVID-19 issue, challenge, pandemic was getting underway, and you coming to me and saying, Doug, maybe we should be reminding our member agencies about the fact that they have access to insurance, life insurance, through a couple of our partners, that we have programs in place, et cetera. And my reticence to put that communication out. And I remember you saying to me, well, Doug, I don't know that I agree with that. And I was taking a tack as a marketing guy that, well, maybe that isn't the right time. Maybe it's in poor taste. And in the subsequent weeks, I recall receiving a number of communications from our member agencies and from our master agencies about people are asking about and want life insurance given the current environment. So to your credit, you read that correctly, and I misread it. And it really was the right thing to do when I think about you putting it that way in terms of making sure that our member agencies and P&C agents in general who are licensed to sell life insurance were thinking about that and continue to think about that and offer that to their clients. So I just wanted to follow up on that.
Well, you know what? I will tell you that I had some similar thoughts. Nobody wants to exploit a bad situation, particularly when it comes to insurance, because, sometimes insurance agents can have a bad image, certainly on the life insurance side. And I don't think it's necessarily fair, but I think we're somewhat sensitive to that. But it has been an amazing thing, with what is going on with the whole coronavirus. I think people are definitely feeling more vulnerable. Not only is life insurance or our life insurance sales way up, but even things like, wills and, people are using this as an opportunity. And it's kind of a forced reminder of you want to make sure that you're kind of making sure that things are in order. And that's true for even myself and my own family. There are a couple of things that we looked at and made adjustments because you just never know. You just never know.
You're right. It's reality, and that's where we're at. So I'm going to focus now on two other things here that you talked about, and that was the income and retention components. And they seem very obvious to me, but I'm wondering, given your experience, both here at SIAA and our listeners don't know it, but you have also time with Liberty Mutual. So what I'm trying to say there when I mentioned Liberty Mutual is that you have some perspective outside of our organization. What's the biggest objection that you encounter with agents about selling life insurance?
There are a lot of objections out there, just like there are in any type of sale. But the biggest one that I've heard throughout my career, not only with Liberty Mutual, but the many other companies that I had worked before, and even back when I was in sales, was I have it through work. I don't need any coverage. I already have it through work. My employer provides it, and so I'm covered, which is a huge, huge mistake. And again, the current situation is indicative of that. You have, again, 40 million people potentially have lost their jobs. There's probably 40% of those people that lost the only coverage that they've had. And what people don't take into consideration is that by having your own individual policy, you have control. You can convert it. You can hold on to it. You can, lengthen the term. You can bring it with you. You don't have to worry about it from a job standpoint. Think about this for a second, Doug. let's say that you've worked for an employer for 20 years, and you have a group coverage, and you never got your own individual coverage, and God forbid that you were to acquire some type of illness, and you really still had a life insurance need. And let's say that you were miserable in this job that you were at. But the other jobs that you were looking at to maybe kind of like jump ship, that they didn't have a life insurance option, it may actually prevent you from actually leaving a job that you dislike and going to a job that you like, because you can't replace that group coverage that you have. And you may be in a situation now where you can't get your own individual coverage. So that objection, by and large, is one that I've encountered many, many times throughout my career. And one of the ways that I've used, or a way to kind of combat that objection, in the way that I've actually taught people to kind of overcome that objection, is to say, hey, that's fantastic. It's great that you actually have some coverage in place. You obviously value it. But let me ask you, how much coverage do you have that you own, that you control? And people get kind of confused about that because they don't know what it means. The reality of it is most people that have group life insurance, they've never seen their policy. They've never seen the details of their policy. And the reason that they haven't seen it is because they don't own it. Their company is the one that actually owns that policy. So they don't know the restrictions. They may not even know that their premium is actually going to go up every 5 or 10 years, depending upon the way that policy is structured. The interesting thing about group life insurance is it is ridiculously cheap, inexpensive when you're young and healthy. But when you start getting into your mid and upper 50s and early 60s, that gets prohibitively expensive. It gets so expensive that a lot of people that rely solely upon that group coverage end up dropping it, probably at a time when they need it most. The other thing that they don't realize is when they leave that company, their coverage is either going to be reduced or it's going to be eliminated completely, maybe potentially leaving them exposed. So, that's the biggie. I mean, you get some of the other objections, I want to think about it. I don't have the money right now. In terms of I don't have the money right now, it always kind of made me laugh. And even when I was in sales, I would go to people's houses and walk by their brand new Ford F-150 in their snowmobiles, in their ski mobiles, in their 100-inch television screen, and them telling me that they couldn't afford to get life insurance. But the reality of it is people just don't know. The number one reason why people don't get life insurance is they think it's about 3 times as expensive than it actually is. You can literally, for a 35-year-old male, you can literally get like $250,000 worth of coverage for about $300 or $400 a year. It doesn't have to be expensive. The thing that our people, our members, and people that really want to sell life insurance, they just need to have the conversation. They just need to have the conversation.
And to follow up on that, it certainly sounds like it's about information, right? But people, they don't understand how inexpensive life insurance can be and the benefits of it. They don't understand what they currently have if they're doing group insurance through an employer, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
So it really does sound like it's a knowledge thing.
It is a knowledge thing. And if, people take the time to just dig in just a little bit, they'll probably have enough information that they could build a career in terms of life insurance. I mean, before we leave the whole, group life thing to versus an individual life thing I actually ran an illustration. So, a 35-year-old male for $100,000 worth of coverage and what it would cost them to have a 30-year term to take them out to age 65 compared to what they would have if they just had a group policy. And the interesting thing is that in the early years, the group policy is by and large, far, far cheaper. But if you go out the entire 30 years, you're actually going to save your client about $8,000 on average by having them get their own individually owned 30-year policy where the rate and the premium doesn't change.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting. And there you go again, right? It being informed.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So let me switch gears for just a minute. As we talk about, or we've been talking about the benefits of selling life insurance and how it helps our clients, et cetera, as P&C agents and life agents. If an agent does not have a life insurance license, what are their options in terms of offering life insurance? And as a follow-up to that, if you'll think about if they do decide to get a life license, if they don't currently have one, what's the typical commitment in terms of time frame for obtaining one?
Yeah, this is something that I find a bit confusing and even sometimes a little bit entertaining. I can't imagine and don't understand why a PNC producer wouldn't have their life insurance license. But let me answer your question first. For those people that don't have a life insurance license, they're doing a couple of different things. They're either saying, no, I can't help you. I focus just on property and casualty. So they lose a potential sale, or they may have an established relationship with somebody that does have a life license. It may be somebody that focuses on life and financial. Here's the inherent risk in that. If you're telling somebody no, or if you're actually referring that, you're basically potentially losing that client. And I'll give you an example. I spoke to one of our members, and this was sometime last year, and I was talking to him about the benefits of life insurance, like I do every day, with me waving my arms and getting excited about it. And he said to me, he was like, Jack, you are preaching to the choir. And he was like, for the last 15 years, he was like, I've been referring my life insurance clients to this fellow that is down the road. And the relationship has worked out okay. Occasionally he sent me a PNC lead. Occasionally he shared a little bit of income with me, which he probably shouldn't have done. But he was like, he called me like 3 weeks ago and said, I'm out. I'm retiring. I'm getting out of the business. So, I thought for a second, and, the producer, our member, said, oh, now I'm going to have to find a new outlet for life insurance. But it actually gets worse than that, because the fellow that he was actually referring his life clients to had actually sold his agency, and he sold his agency to a company that had their own PNC division. So that means that all of those people, 15 years worth of life clients that he had sent down there, are now going to get cross-marketed on the property and casualty side. The reality of it is that there are ways with our existing relationships, if you have a life license, that you can literally refer qualified life clients over and not have to do anything beyond that and still get half of the commission, without having to be involved in the sales process or the underwriting process or having to learn the products. All you need to do is to develop a short script in terms of being able to introduce the concept of life insurance and then handing it over. But let me get back to the whole life insurance license thing. One of the things I've kind of polled people, kind of as a joke, but also to kind of prove a point. So last year, being in front of many, many members, I asked the question. I was like, for those of you out there that don't have a life insurance license, why? Why don't you have a life insurance? If you look at your individual state, the cost of actually getting your life license is about $80 on average. It's not a lot of money. Now, yes, you absolutely have to take a test, but if you pass the property and casualty test, you are going to have an easy time passing the life test, both from the national and the state levels, whatever they do from a testing standpoint. Let me give you an example, Doug, of what could potentially happen and what one of our clients or our members may actually miss out on. We actually have a case that's going right now. We have somebody that has an existing property and casualty client who came into his office or called in and said, hey, I just switched companies. I have a huge 401k that I need to move because the company that I'm going to doesn't really have an outlet. So I need to roll it into, some type of an IRA, and I want to move it into a fixed annuity because my investment risk tolerance has changed. And our member, thankfully, had his life insurance license, didn't really know anything about annuities, but contacted one of our partner companies and said, hey, I have this situation. They actually walked him through the sales process, gave him a couple of questions that he should answer, walked him through the application process. Make a long story short, the client had moved $1.2 million in 401k money into a fixed annuity.
Wow.
And our member walked away with about 40 grand in commission. So think about that. For investing $80 and sacrificing a weekend, or maybe a week to cram through, the insurance license and taking a little time to get a better understanding of the products. And there was so much information out there to help with that. This individual was able to help the client make a good deal of money. If you don't have your life license, you miss out on opportunities like that. You also expose yourself in the possibilities of losing clients to those organizations, those agencies that are more full service. Just because you're not interested in dealing with life insurance, you can still generate income. All you need to do is to get over that small hurdle. And then to answer your question in terms of what it takes, it honestly doesn't take that much to actually get your life license. It can vary by state. There are some states out there that will require 40 hours worth of training, but there are enough resources out there that you can walk through it. You don't have to attend a class. You can do it remotely. It's much, much easier than it used to be.
Gotcha. Thank you. And it sounds like there's a bit of opportunity there if you're ready for it with your license.
When I think of those existing members or those existing producers that have 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 clients that have never been marketed from a life insurance standpoint, they are sitting on a gold mine, an untapped gold mine.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the benefit of just increasing or if you will, hedging a bit by improving your retention rate for sure over the long run.
No question.
Yeah. Excellent. So let's go a little bit away from that outlier, if you will, and I'm assuming that it kind of is, right? A $40,000 commission. But if the typical P&C agent does take the initiative to, and I shouldn't even, it doesn't occur to me that it's that much of an initiative in terms of dealing with your existing clients, right? It's something as you mentioned, it's the right thing to do. But if you go down that path, do you have a sense for, on average, what that might mean in terms of income to the typical agent?
Again, if you look at the LIMRA statistics, and LIMRA is Life Insurance Market Research Association, all they do is studies and surveys and that type of thing. And based upon their numbers, they actually talk about the average life sale for P&C producer is right around $1,000. So, if you think about that, and then you think about the existing relationships that we have that are paying commissions of 80, sometimes 90. We actually have one carrier that's offering 104.63% of the first year premium.
Wow.
If you have somebody that actually gets into a rhythm of just asking people the question, hey, when was the last time that somebody reviewed your life insurance? Or said, hey, you know what, I'm going through my file and I recognize or realize that we don't have your life insurance. I'd like to spend a little time to talk to you about that. If they can get into that cadence, if they can get into that rhythm, if you're selling, 2 policies a month, you're increasing your income by what, 20, 24,000. But here's the interesting thing. If you do start getting into that rhythm, it's not always going to be, an average of $1,000. There are certainly going to be some that are going to be less, but you're definitely going to run into somebody that needs a single premium whole life policy, a universal policy, an indexed universal life policy where the premiums are much higher. We have a case that we're working on right now that, one of our members, and again, this is a bit of an outlier, admittedly, not an everyday case, but the annual premium on it is in excess of $400,000. And he ran into that case because he was just dumb enough to ask people without putting a lot of thought into it, hey, when was the last time that somebody talked to you about your life insurance? And he was just smart enough to do that on a consistent basis.
Well, it's funny. You have to fall back to the basic, right? You have to ask for the business, and we do that as P&C agents. Why not take it to the next level?
Doug, you talked a little bit about me spending some time at Liberty Mutual, and I was with them for 20 years. And one interesting story, we actually shot a video. We brought like 20 of the best life producers of Liberty Mutual down to Florida, and we wined them and dined them and whatnot. But we also had kind of a soundstage set up, and we interviewed these people on an individual basis to try to get, what's the silver bullet? How are you successful when it comes to, to life insurance? And I was responsible for doing the pre-interview. They would never have me on camera, of course. So I got, had the duty of actually interviewing people before they got on camera. And the interesting thing to me is that, everybody had their approach. It was a little bit different, but by and large, these people that were making, an additional $50,000, $75,000, $100,000, $150,000 in life insurance sales, in commission on an annual basis. There were two things that I realized. There is no magic bullet other than you have to ask. All you have to do is to ask. But the other thing that I found really interesting is that each of these people had an awakening. Initially they were asking people about life insurance, almost sheepishly, if you will, like, hey, do you have life insurance? But they had a little bit of a change where they were more prescriptive. Look, I'm the expert here. I'm the one that's making the recommendations on the property and casualty and, where your limits and your coverages and all that type of thing. And you're listening to me. You're my client. You know that I'm the expert when it comes to that. You should have the same attitude and take the same approach when it comes to life insurance. If you have somebody that doesn't have it, you should feel confident in asking about it, and not even asking about it, but recommending it and making a strong recommendation. You're a licensed individual. You work with this stuff on a day in and day out basis. You're a professional. And even if you don't know a ton about life insurance, you still know 99.99% more than the person sitting across from you. And if there's an oddball or curveball question, there are so many resources for you to get the information you need that you can look like a professional, get the right answers for your client, and make them feel comfortable with the decision that they're making. You just have to get the ball rolling. You have to ask the question. It's amazing. Being in the life insurance, industry for 35 plus years, it's never changed. You just have to ask, and you have to ask on a consistent basis.
That's so true. It's amazing how, the manner in which we do some things may change over time, but the fact is that there's still the same steps. It's still the same action that one must take in order to affect a sale. That's interesting. Which leads me actually to my next and final question, because we're going to run short on time. And that is that, a little known fact, this guy actually obtained his life insurance license decades ago. And I think about what was involved in terms of taking an application and processing that application back then. I'm assuming that based on the enhancements to technology, shall we say, that have taken place over time, that the processes are a little bit easier in general. And I'm just wondering, can you comment on how technology has made that process or streamlined the process for life insurance sales in general?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like it used to be. I mean, I remember back in the day, even when I was selling life insurance, got back in like the late 80s, and it's a ton of questions and a ton of paperwork and 9 or 10 different signatures. And I was pretty good at selling the insurance. I was terrible with the paperwork. I was always missing something. And that's not only a frustration for the client and a frustration for the agent that's actually selling it, but it's also a frustration for the people in the home office that are doing the processing. So, it leaps and bounds, man. When you think about, life insurance right now, the life insurance companies are actively and continuously trying to make the buying experience and the selling experience a lot better. So, the easy thing is now, everything is electronic. So drop down menus, you can't move ahead unless you actually answer the question and the drop down question or the signatures. So you can be assured of the fact that by the time that you finish going through the application, that you have everything completely and accurately. So, a lot of your applications are actually being submitted in good order, but it's more than the application process. And before I leave the application process, now you have your laptop, but you can actually take a life insurance application on your phone these days, so they make it a lot easier. But again, the carriers are doing what they can to make the buying experience a lot easier. So, a lot of the applications have been streamlined in terms of the questions that they're actually asking. Okay. And then on top of that, the insurance companies are getting more and more creative in terms of utilizing data as opposed to getting an exam or getting a lab or having a paramed come out to, to weigh and ask a bunch of medical questions. They're trying to streamline the process. They're utilizing data a lot more. You actually have a lot of carriers out there that have intelligent or jet underwriting programs where you can literally get an underwriting decision in a couple of hours or a couple of days. So it's not that long drawn out process. But here's an interesting thing, Doug. One of the reasons why you have some of our property and casualty producers that don't sell life insurance or hate selling life insurance is 5 years ago or 10 years ago, they had somebody that came into their office saying, "Hey, I need life insurance." Now, this is a red flag automatically because generally people don't seek it out unless they really need it, which means that they may have an impairment, they may be sick, and those cases are usually nightmares. Somebody that says, "Hey, I need life insurance," and it's a broad brush statement. It's not always the case, right. But I know that there have been some of our members that have said, "Look, I tried selling life insurance like 5 years ago." Somebody came into my office and they found out that they had not only high blood pressure, but diabetes, and they had a nervous disorder. So the application process was a nightmare. But on top of getting all the labs and whatnot, they had to get all the medical records, and it took months to do that. And then ultimately the insurance carrier came back with a decision, and the premium was like 3 times as much as I originally quoted. And the client was mad, and I was mad, and it was just a bad experience all around. but the reality of it is that a lot of that, bad experience is offset by the good experience if you're proactive in asking people and you're getting people that are reasonably healthy, that need coverage or may not even know that they need coverage. That process is a lot easier. And especially with today's technology, the selling process is just so super slick. And again, let me reiterate that even some of our existing relationships have options. Like, I'll give you an example with our Crump relationship. If you're selling a term product, you're literally sitting down with somebody, running them a quote. If they say, "Yes, that sounds good, I want to run with that," you basically ask them a couple of questions and you literally drop a ticket to the Crump folks, and they complete your application on your behalf. They complete the part 1, they complete the part 2, they ask all the medical questions, they all order all of the underwriting requirements. Our members don't have to do any of that stuff. And here's the cool thing about it. Number one, they're assured of the fact that their applications are going to go to the respective carrier completely and accurately. But number 2, it doesn't cost anything. There's no charge, there's no fee, there's no commission haircut. Our members still get 100% of the available commission, even though they're handing some of that responsibility off. The other thing is with all of the relationships that we have, they all have programs in place that if somebody comes into your office and says, "Hey, I need life insurance," if you're too busy on the P&C side, if it's a product that you're not that familiar with, you can literally hand it off through a white glove service or a sales assist service where you're literally handing that client off to, one of our partners, and they are handling every aspect of that sale on your behalf. They're doing the initial appointment. They're doing a needs review. They're working with the client to select a carrier, a product, a face amount. They're taking the application. They're doing all of the gathering of the information for underwriting. They're the ones that are following up on the underwriting requirements all the way through policy delivery. Literally, our members don't have to be involved in the process at all. And once that case actually goes into a paid status, as long as our member is appropriately licensed in the state where the sale was made, they still get half of the commission. They get half for doing nothing but referring it over. So there are a number of different ways that you can actually increase your income, help your retention, most importantly, help your clients without distracting you from your core P&C business.
And that's a great way, actually, to sum it up, Jack. I really appreciate it. I hate to cut you off because you're so excited about the topic, but we have reached the end of our time, and I want to thank you very much for coming on with us today, Jack.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and we'll definitely have you back again. I will say this as a reminder to everyone. Our guest today has been Jack Calabrese, Senior Vice President of Life and Benefits at SIAA. And SIAA is the largest alliance of independent insurance agencies in the United States. I want to thank all of you for listening to this episode of Insurance Agents Talk Shop. I'm Doug Coombs, and I hope you'll join us next time. Thank you.